It's time to make sports talk great again with Curt Schilling and Steve Deace.
And greetings, happy Friday. It is The Blaze where we talk sports. I am Steve Deace. I'm a nobody. He's a guy that's won a couple World Series, did something with a bloody sock or something once that people think is cool, and may or may not be in the Hall of Fame one day because apparently he struck out 3,000 major leaguers, whatever. His name is Curt Schilling. How are you, Curt?
What's going on, man?
We are going on. We're going to put 25 minutes on the clock. We're going to get to as many of the day's sports topics as we possibly can, beginning right now. I saw this story yesterday. And the Athletic has done a poll the last 2 years, and it's players anonymously responding to numerous questions, which I would assume you kind of feel, and I would agree, is gutless to begin with.
Well, no, let me just tell you, this is one of the most influential things that happens during the baseball season.
It is? Oh, okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I want you to explain to us why then after I set it up. But Bryce Harper, for the second consecutive year, voted the most overrated. When I saw this, though, I thought, if I'm a Philly fan, thank you. Because if I'm concerned, maybe if I'm concerned about him coasting on that contract, at least this year, okay, and resting on his laurels as he miserly counts all that money, seeing something like that, I've got to believe will light whatever extra fire Bryce Harper needed. But what's your view of this and this poll, and why do you think it's so influential?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I thought he was going to have a monster year beforehand. And yesterday only reinforced that. But
what do you think of the Philly Fanatic shoes? Did you like those?
Oh my God,
I liked it.
By the way, the best mascot in all of sports. Not even close.
It's up there. I would agree.
Yeah. But yeah, this is. Let me just put this out there. I had a chance to meet this young man a couple years back, and I was very impressed. From a, if you wonder, out of sight, out of mind, what he's doing. He's a respectful kid. He respects the game. He plays the game hard, and all the things you hope for. But this is a dream come true for the Phillies because I wasn't. Like I said, I thought he was going to have a monster year. Finding out that your opponents don't respect you, or are jealous, or I don't know what the word would be. Is an incredibly motivating thing. Because I've talked to guys and seen guys. You never get a chance to ask your opponents what they think about you. Mm-hmm. Right? You know when you're a decent player. You know when you're a good player. You play the game with respect. But this is a guy who's got a lot of media attention, and this is going to be a huge motivating factor for him, a driver for him.
How much of these results, when you look at these, like going into last year? We both agree he did not have the all-world season that was expected. Nope. Still won the home run derby and had 100 RBIs. Okay, that's if that's your down year, 97%.
370 on-base percentage, at 34 home. He did all the things you wanted him to do.
97% of guys would take that as a career year. That's his down year. Okay, heading into last season, it was him and Mike Trout were the debate every year who's the best player in baseball. Right. Yeah. So why was he voted most overrated going into last year? This year, I kind of see it, but he still had a really good year. Right. This strikes me as an outsider who's never been in a clubhouse, let alone played at the level you did. This just strikes me as just flat out, envy. Just flat out, you're just butthurt.
Yes, in many ways. But you got to remember, personalities come into play here. These guys mingle. Right? When he's on the bases, he's talking to the infielders. But
you just told us he's a really respectful guy. So
yeah. So I don't. But I don't know how he is with his fellow players. Okay. And this tells me that he might not be the amiable guy that I think he is as a player. Mm-hmm. He might be one of those guys.
Could he be one of those guys that away from the game respects the game, but while he's out there, he's kind of hair of the dog, if you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Could he be one of those guys?
There's this phenomenon with star players that I ran into with guys like Mark Grace was one. Like guys who try too hard to fit in when they don't have to. Like Gracie would be a guy who would be working really hard in a conversation to be funny and be influential when everybody in the conversation was saying, dude, relax. You're already like more famous than all of us.
In other words, too self-aware. Another way.
Exactly.
There's an awkward lack of self-awareness, and then there's the awkward too much self-awareness. Relax, bro. Right?
Well, A-Rod, right? I mean, that's what A-Rod, right? Crafting and sculpting something. But Yeah, I thought it was a something that was going to motivate the Phillies or motivate him. And yesterday only reinforced why I'm very comfortable with the Phillies in the over this year.
Well, yesterday was opening day for the rest of baseball, other than the 2 games out in Japan. Some of the highlights that I've picked up on, and then you can, question, comment, or insult. You look at the Mets and the Nats yesterday. You had a historic outing. Everybody was looking forward to that, of course. But this is the first time ever that opposing starters on opening day both had double-digit strikeouts. And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, does this strike you though as a game the Mets absolutely lose last year without that extra, bat in the lineup like a Robinson Cano, who essentially won that game for them on the other side, when from the pitching mound yesterday. This is a game, and he homered in his first AB with the team, but this is the game the Mets lost like 25 times last year.
Well, let me just tell you with a bigger piece to this. For me, first off, the pitching matchup was everything it was supposed to be. And excuse me, that doesn't happen a lot. I always was amped for that matchup for me because I didn't want to be the guy who didn't hold up my end of the bargain in a duel like this. Mm-hmm. Both of them held up their end of the bargain. In fact, Scherzer was old school. He went 109 pitches on opening day.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's your ace. That's what he does. But I think, if anything, the most important thing for me as a Mets fan, it wasn't that Robinson Cano homered off of Max Scherzer, or that Robinson Cano homered. It said he homered off Max Scherzer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were wondering about Robinson Cano, whose forte has always been fastball, he could hit. There's a saying, he could pull a bullet. And yesterday's home run tells me that Robinson Cano is nowhere near the backside of that career. And that, to me, was a huge thing. I know it's one at bat and all this stuff, but it goes with that in its opening day. But the fact that Robinson Cano turned on Max Scherzer, who is the preeminent strikeout pitcher in the game right now, tells me that the bat speed's still there and all the things I'm hoping for when I made that trade are still there. And so that's
the difference in that trade being the kind of move a desperate major market team makes when they think they need a name, and then it doesn't work out. We've seen that a million times. And the Mets have been 900,000 of those times. Or the kind of move that takes you from a team whose pitching was much better than your record should have indicated last year to a team that there was a lot of public money on their win total this offseason. That's what the difference between one of those two outcomes is, don't you think?
Think about the DeGrom, then you're going to come back with Syndergaard and Matz,
right?
Which is awesome. But then you're backing it up with a bullpen that is ridiculous. And that 2-0.
We said in our preview that Mets may have the best starter and closer in the division. Both.
They went 1-0 into the 8th before Scherzer gave up the second run, but they did so being able to hold Jacob to 7 innings, and they did it with a shutdown bullpen.
Cardinals and Brewers yesterday. Christian Yelich picking right up the reigning MVP where he left off with 3 RBIs, and the Brewers. We're struggling here when you don't have a game for 4 months. You see this in college football season too, right? Where there's no games for 8 months, so we all way overreact to week 1. Okay, so tell me what is the right reaction, overreaction, underreaction? But at the very least, seeing Yelich come right out against a team that a lot of people are picking to win this division over you, that's the way you want to start. Just prove there's no sophomore slump, right?
Well, you saw the ending of this game, right?
No.
Lorenzo Cain.
Oh, Lorenzo Cain. Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then did the press conference where his kid said, "Not today," which I thought was awesome. The concern yesterday for me, Yelich is Yelich. I mean, this is he's one of those guys, when you stand next to him, you get an appreciation for what a pure athlete is. But the bigger question off of yesterday for me, Josh Hader, opening day, 6-out save, which he was perfect, as he normally is. But the 3-headed monster they had last year is now just one head right now. You got Jefferson and Nebel. I think Jefferson and Nebel, who are both on the DL. So you're going to see, I think you're going to see Counsell be a potential manager of the year again if they stay. He's going to have to manage that bullpen a little differently.
You've got to manage Hader's innings, don't you?
Oh, sure you do.
Until those guys come back, because you don't want to have him with around August. Just essentially, he's done. You've spent him.
He's going to have to be a guy this year that we say, "Hey, you're off today," and you can't, no matter what, you cannot go pick up the phone.
And does that mean sometimes you have to be willing to risk losing a game in May and June so that you can win more important games in September?
I think what it means is sometimes you have to have the roster to not use him and still win.
Mm-hmm.
and still win when you would need him. That's what it means. I look at that situation like I think the Mets, to me, are that three-headed monster that Milwaukee had last year.
Let me ask another way. If they opened yesterday against the Padres, would he have gone 2 innings for a save, do you think, or not?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so, but you know.
So that would be an example of the situational managing that you're talking about. Here's a stat I want to throw at you, okay? Red Sox allowed 12 runs. This is from ESPN Stats and Info. I want to make sure we give them credit. Red Sox allowed 12 runs against the Mariners on opening day. That's the most runs allowed on opening day by a defending World Series champion ever. And on top of that, there's this part. If that part alone doesn't blow you away, how about this one is don't bury the lead here. No team has ever allowed 12 plus runs on opening day and gone on to win the World Series in the entire history of this game, Curt.
All right. So I was thinking about this when I saw this last night. It makes sense, right? You don't, no defending world champion has ever given up 12 runs because a defending world champion usually has a stud opening day starter. Mm-hmm. And they don't give up 12 runs. Mm-hmm. And same for the second reason. Usually, if your opening day starter, if you give up 12 runs on opening day, your opening day starter sucks, and you're not going to be one of the favorites to go to the World Series.
Or if he has a bad outing, you've got a bullpen that when you pull him when he gives up 5 runs, doesn't give up the next 7, something like that.
So here, and I didn't realize. So I didn't watch the whole game. I watched a little early. Here's what I would tell you if I'm a Red Sox fan when I wake up this morning.
What's Boston Sports Talk Radio doing today?
I'll tell you exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
They are mortified that Chris Sale was throwing 91 to 93 yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They are mortified because they just signed him to a 5-year extension. His velocity was down all spring. And I got to tell you as a pitcher, and I think in some sense I have a mentality almost like Chris Sale. I think from an aggression and a pitching standpoint, I think we're somewhat similar. I'm not saying we're the same. But if I could tell you that there were occasions when I would be throwing harder than I normally am, I would tell you it's the postseason, every inning, the All-Star game, and opening day. Those are the 3 times when I would naturally have more velocity because of the energy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to throw harder. I was just throwing harder. And so I was expecting him, after the spring training of questioning velocity, I was expecting him to come out and just say, all right, everybody, just shut up and do what he does. And it was I would be very concerned because that's 4 or 5 miles an hour, and that isn't normal.
Is that something you think you get stronger as the year goes on? Educate our audience, or because you're starting there and the wear and tear hasn't even kicked in yet, we're not going to be sitting here. You don't think we're sitting here like Memorial Day and he's consistently hitting 96 on the gun?
No, because velocity is something you build up in spring training for the most part. Yeah, listen, you'll over the course of the season, towards the middle of the year, you'll probably be at your peak. You'll be a mile or 2 per hour faster than you were early in the year. But again, yesterday is one of the days where all the questions you're throwing harder. Because it's especially as a strikeout pitcher, and that was the one thing of all the things I was expecting out of him yesterday. That was the one I wasn't expecting.
To get to some college basketball, last night's Sweet 16 matchups, we had Florida State and Gonzaga kind of play an ugly game, and Gonzaga got the win. You had Texas Tech against Michigan. Michigan playing its absolute worst game of the season, one of its worst games of the John Beilein era. And what's funny is I didn't really think Texas Tech played that well until like the second half when they saw Michigan's playing their worst game and they're like, let's blow these guys out. And so they did. So Texas Tech in the Elite Eight for the second year in a row. You had Oregon against Virginia. That was the rock fight many people expected. And the classic last night, Tennessee against Purdue. Well, I went 1-3 in my picks last night. The only one I thought was a really bad handicap was Purdue and Tennessee. I thought Tennessee would come back from a near-death experience, and they didn't. In fact, they played their worst half of the entire year in the first half. And then Purdue, Ryan Klein, and his shooting motion, it looked like Larry Bird was out there playing for Purdue. last night. The daggers that he was dropping. Purdue, a program that's won more Big Ten championships than anybody else in basketball, but has not had a lot of March Madness success. They haven't been to an Elite Eight since 2000. They haven't been to a Final Four since Joe Barely Cares when Jimmy Carter was still president. That is a suffering fan base that's had a lot of postseason heartbreak. So it was good to see them get off the schneid. And Tennessee kind of played the same game 2 games in a row, just in reverse. They had the big lead and then almost blew it against Iowa and then won in overtime. And then they were the team that did the big comeback, down by 18 against Purdue, and then they lose in overtime. Your thoughts on last night's games?
My thoughts turned to you, and you had your Achilles heel actually got exposed for the first day in our relationship, really. Going 1-3 after having the monster opening round. I
apologize for only being 49, 20, and 2 against the spread.
I was waiting for the apology, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just like I'm sure you're sorry you only struck out 3,000 major leaguers. I'm sure you're sorry about that.
Right. 3,116.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I thought yesterday was like the antithesis, or I don't know what the word is. This tournament was normal. Yesterday was the first wrench in the gears.
Like, did you feel, other than Purdue and Tennessee, like you expected, like with all these higher seeded teams all playing each other, the quality of basketball would like go up? Did you anticipate that, right? And with the exception of this, really the second half of Purdue Tennessee in the overtime, the quality actually seemed to go down. They seemed to just rock fight each other all night long.
Oh, you know what it said to me? It said to me that you need to stop doing this 4 or 5 day off thing.
Oh, you thought there was too much rust there?
Did you not? I didn't think any of these teams came out and looked like, okay, we're ready to move to the Elite Eight.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of there was an awkward kind of getting back in the flow of things time.
Mm-hmm.
In a couple of games, it took the whole game. And so I didn't feel good about, I got to tell you, I didn't feel good about any of the games.
In all of those games funny you should mention that now that you bring that up. In all of the games last night, either one or both teams had a hideous first half. It was difficult basketball to watch. The only team that I thought had a really good Gonzaga put up 35 points, but if you watch that game, it was really on the last 4 minutes of the first half that they were really making shots. Purdue played excellent basketball in the first half, and that is what propelled them to go ahead and win the game. But Tennessee was 4 of 13 on free throws. Admiral Schofield had 1 point. They were -6 in rebounds. They shot 32%.
Many of the teams had season worst firsts in this game, and the only thing I can think of was that they were off too long, and that speaks to coaching a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie, because after 5 days off, the coaches, especially in basketball, that first 5-10 minutes is kind of you're setting the pace, you're setting the tempo, and all the things to go with that. But your coach is also influential in that first couple minutes to get you going, and it didn't look right.
So tonight we've got Virginia Tech against Duke in an ACC rematch in the Washington, D.C., LSU against Michigan State, Auburn, North Carolina, Houston, Kentucky. Those are the games tonight. These are more offensive-minded teams, with the exception of Virginia Tech. So I think we'll get a real test, and Houston's is more of a defensive-minded team, too. This will be a true test of your theory with the layoff, because for several of these teams, they're actually taking an extra day off from playing last weekend. But these are more offensive-minded teams.
They have last night to look at, and every one of them is saying the same thing. Hey, let's not start off like they did.
Right.
They're all looking at that, every one of them, and the players, too, which is a huge thing. Because, again, I think things like this affect college athletes far more than professional athletes. They're all of the coaches are hypersensitive to that very thing, especially the higher seeds tonight, going into tonight. They're looking at last night and terrified of the fact that their team might actually do something that was done last night and ruin a season that's been set up to get them to a special place.
How's your bracket looking? I have 3 of my Final Four teams left, including my Virginia-Michigan State championship game.
I have 2 words for my bracket: poop salad.
You're done after this week?
Yeah. Well, unless Michigan and Kansas can find a way to meet up in the title game, yes, I'm done.
All right. I don't know if you saw this, but let's file this under the headlines of bad ideas whose time has come. All right. Zach Smith, the alleged, although fairly confidently alleged, wife-beating former Ohio State assistant coach, who turned the Woody Hayes football complex into the adult emporium, says he'll be coming out with a new tell-all podcast here soon. And I got to thinking, what would be some good names for the Zach Smith podcast, right? So without further ado, Curt, and you haven't seen these yet, correct?
No.
Without further ado, I want to present my list of top 5 potential Zach Smith podcast names and get your reaction to each one of these. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right, here's number 5 on the list. Zach Scratch Fever. What do you think? Do you like that one?
No? I think that's reaching.
You think that's reaching a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that one.
All right, how about number 4? Cruising for a bruising. What do you think?
All right. Picking it up a little bit.
Are we kicking it up a notch?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I mean, and as someone who grew up in a home of domestic violence, I think he could use his ass beat. I don't know what you think.
And by the way, we're having fun with this, and with the recognition that
he's a fiend.
This is right.
Yes. Yeah. We're making fun of a fiend. That's what we're doing here. Number 3 on our list, the Scarlet Letter podcast.
Okay, I like that.
You like that one?
Yeah, that's more Dennis Miller, kind of intelligent humor.
There's a little 4-dimensional chess with that headline. Yes. Scarlet and Gray, Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah.
You might want to maybe bloody up Zach. Men who beat women like he does. You might want to bloody him up a little bit. This one works on multiple levels, right? Number 2 on the list. Okay, cool. Hook 'em. And if you'll recall, this was Tom Herman's response to Zach Smith last fall when Zach Smith went off on his former Ohio State coaching compadre, believing he's the one that ratted him out for wailing on his wife, and started attacking him on Twitter. And Tom Herman, the Texas head football coach, subtweeted him with a "Okay, cool, hook 'em," which has become a legendary sign-off now on sports social media all across the Fruited Plain.
One of the greatest trolls ever.
Yes, that was a great troll. And then the wife. Remember, Herman's wife was selling those shirts for women's shelters charities. Oh, that's how you finger roll right there.
That's forever.
And now our number 1 call, Buckeye Balls Deep. The name of the Zach Smith podcast. Your thoughts, because I don't know if you've ever had Buckeye Balls. Very succulent, chocolate and peanut butter with a little Rice Krispie mix there. Absolutely one of my favorite holiday treats, but they are very difficult to make. I've tried to emulate Buckeye Balls at my house as a Michigan fan. I've been unable to do it. I usually have to order out. Curt, your thoughts?
The only thing on my mind right now is Alec Baldwin's Sweaty Balls skit. I
would highly recommend Buckeye Balls, though. They are very
sure you would.
Yeah, I love them. One of my favorite treats. Yes.
You're right. I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it can only be a 1 podcast run, right?
I would think. Why? Who do you think is? Do you think anybody is sweating this out? Like, what good could come of this? Do you think Urban Meyer is sweating this out? What do you think he's going to do with this?
There's ultra self-aware and there's lack of self-awareness.
He's on the other end of the lack of.
Isn't he all the way at the bottom of the pile of lack of self-awareness, in the sense that this is Jussie Smollett suing Chicago? Right? Hey, dude.
Yes. Yeah.
You're done.
You've
Stop.
had your 15 minutes
Just
were
go
up
away and
25 minutes ago.
OJ.
Yes.
OJ, be quiet. Be quiet, dude. All right? You got away with it. Shut up and just live the rest of your life.
Yes.
This guy screams of that.
And this behavior, if we could just be serious for a second, which is difficult, okay? But since we are talking about, I believe, a fiend, let's be serious for a second. This kind of behavior, the idea that he believes he's the one being victimized here, okay? There's one of the most powerful movie trailers a year ago or last year was the trailer to the latest movie version of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books.
Yeah.
You remember this trailer, and she breaks into the home of the guy who's beating his wife.
Yep.
And it opens up with him. And I mean, I watched this. I was like, holy crap. They like took this scene out of my childhood. Like, watch this happen where this would occur. And then he would like say, you know, I've had a really bad day at work. I'm the victim. I had to take it out on somebody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it was you. Right. That happens right in the movie trailer. His behavior, doesn't it just reinforce all of the allegations and speculations swirling about him? That this, I'm just telling you from my own life experience, guys who do this to women, when they're in between outbreaks and in between acting outs, this is exactly how they behave. Just like this, Curt.
This is the when you look up the word coward, when you look up every word that you can think of as a man that is dishonorable, this is the picture. Mm-hmm. This is the guy. This is the school playground bully. This is the most insecure human being on the planet. This is everything, all of it. And like I said, in a sense, I'm glad it's happening, because the only thing he's going to do is further embarrass himself and destroy himself, which people like this, I hold out hope, and I know as a Christian and in my faith that he'll have to answer for this someday. And when he does, I can't imagine the pain he's going to expose and what he's going to be revealed to himself as. And I don't feel one bit sorry for him.
Curt, have a great weekend. We'll have a Final Four when you and I come back here on Monday. We'll break it down right here on The Blaze.
Take care, bub.